man, portrait photography, like, how do you take the photo to make it look as cool as you make it? So you need a composition and leading lines. And when you take the photo, you have to think about your ISO, your f-stop, and how you want your model to look. Leading lines, composition, how I want the model to look. Oh, that's too much information. Can you just explain that shit for me? It's basically like a light wand. It's really fun to use actually at night for doing night photography. But we'll get into that later. That was just an example. Let's go outside. Let's get into portrait photography actually for real this time. Let's get it. Cruising down the street in my Gary Fisher. My bike. But no, I'm heading over to actually this these couple of spots here in Austin that are pretty popular. Doing photography and that stuff, and we can talk more in depth about portraits. So actually I do think this is pretty cool. Just real quick, just kind of random, sorry, but so this on like Elizabeth Street in Austin, so you can write whatever you want on this chalk wall. It's basically like, before I die, and someone's like, feel satisfied, be successful. I don't know what this part says. Be a better brother. That's dope. Oh, I'm with my friend Bree here, and we're at the chalk wall, like before I die, kind of what I was just kind of saying earlier. So she's going to help me kind of explain portrait photography and these kinds of things. And you totally know what that is, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So in this photo, I was wanting like a cool, like vintage kind of vibe a little bit. In my head, I was thinking, okay, how can I place her? What's like the best way to do this? And I was thinking, okay, so and the rule of thirds is basically like these imaginary tic-tac-toe boxes or lines, and that you want to place the subject in for a really good overall composition. Sometimes like you want to just kind of figure out like how you want your model to look, learn from experience, and kind of just like positioning people and just modeling them in certain ways to make them look better in portraits. Better example actually, because if I had someone in the photo right here, sorry, I kind of tilted my camera, so just stay with me here. But I'd be able to take their photo, right, on my 85mm lens, blur out the background, and this would be just your standard portrait photo. My good friend Alex, actually just saw him here, it's like super, super cool, and he let me take some photos of him playing guitar. So I want to say, when you go to take portraits, right, you want to think about your ISO, your f-stop, and your shutter speed. So shutter speed is going to be obviously how fast the shutter is going to go. If you had like a 1/25th of a second, it's going to go like a machine gun. F-stop, if you're like at a 3.5, more light is going to be let into the camera. If you're at f12, f15, something of that nature, then less light's going to be let in, but it's like the photo's going to be more sharp. And ISO is basically the light that's in the camera that makes, yeah, basically the ISO is just the light that's kind of already into the camera, makes the photo more bright. Really cool angle, and you have to think about the lower thirds, right? So lower thirds are already in your camera, like in the settings. If you just click through the settings in these things, it basically gives you a grid, and I'll put this in post. So if I took a shot like this, you see the bars and everything across my face? This would be like the lower thirds, and you kind of want to just think about that as well. It takes to be, this is what it takes for portrait photo, good portrait photos, is all of this thinking before you like take the shot, more or less. Talking about f-stops earlier, like a 3.5, right, is going to be a shallow depth of field. Now, as you can see from here, as this chart, I should want to go into a little bit explaining it. It's basically, like I said, so if you're at a 3.5 or f1.4, you're going to have a shallow depth of field. Now, what I didn't mention when I was like, if you're at an f-stop of like 22 or f-stop of 18, something like that, right? I said like less light is going to be in the camera, but you're going to get like more sharpness. I'll show you a different example. So 1.4 lens is going to be f1.4 is going to be completely open, a lot of light, like I said, is going to be in the lens. f16 is going to be itty bitty like this. So yeah, they have this little kiddo, she's like really far to the left, right? And then to the right, it's kind of like more shallow depth of field, and kind of gives you that kind of like negative space. So it's kind of like a good contrast, it's kind of like that artsy kind of vibe, and that's what I was talking about with photography, is you have to know how to line up your shot, what's a good composition, how do you want it to look, because in the end, you're just trying to go for what style best fits you. Now, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully it was informative in any way. Comment below what your favorite photography is and let me know. And this was just kind of a fun case study, and yeah, I got some of the cool shots for those two really kind people. Thank you for letting me use you in the photos and the video as well. And yeah, this has been super fun. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for being here. And so, I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.